Warning. The following story contains disturbing scenes concerning animals and pets. If this is outside your comfort zone, click away. I used to go jogging in front of my house. You could say I was just uncomfortable running too far from home. You see, I preferred to run around dark, but we lived in these pseudo-suburbs and we didn't have a streetlight anywhere close. And by pseudo-suburb, I mean miles of rolling hills and forest on the tail end of interspersed houses. Past our house, there ain't nothing for miles. Nothing but trees, that is. You can call me cowardly. You could even call me superstitious or afraid of the dark. But I wasn't about to stray too far from the lights of our front porch at night. So the 20 meters from our mailbox to the cable box on the side of the road became my track. Back and forth. Run a few minutes, walk several, repeat. This kept me in shape, feeling good, and gave me a chance to catch up with all my podcasts that I listened to, thanks to the wireless earbuds my wife had gotten me for my birthday. These earbuds even had sound pass-through. It wasn't perfect, but I could hear a muffled version of the sounds around me, even while listening to my music or podcasts. It was good stuff, but all of this added to the horrific reason I don't go jogging anymore. It started last year when winter was beginning to give way to spring. The ground was constantly wet, caking the bottoms of my joggers with mud as I bounded, out of breath, up and down the unpaved road. I was getting winded sooner than usual that night, probably due to eating too much at dinner earlier. This meant I should probably do a few more back and forths than call it a night. As I approached the cable box again and began to turn on my heel to walk back to the mailbox, I caught a distinct sound through my earbud pass-through that I nearly shrugged off as the peripherals causing distortion or warping some mundane noise around me into this eerie resonance. I paused. It was already troubling enough to turn my back on the dark, meandering road beyond. But this sound immediately increased my heart rate, even though I had no idea what it was or where it was coming from. Convincing myself that it was just some sort of breakage from the hit-or-miss pass-through, I stepped forward, but then I paused once more. The sound came again, a low rumbling enveloped in static. At this, I pulled the earbuds from my head and scanned my surroundings. I couldn't see much. Human eyes are terrible for seeing in the dark, and the nearby porch light kept them from adapting completely to the blackness around me. But my ears heard it clearly. The static within the noise was gone now that my earbuds weren't in. It was a low, rumbling sound, an odd frequency that made my ribs vibrate with it. I had turned around completely then, now facing the dark, winding road past the cable box. But looking along the road was my mistake, as the noise was coming from the trees. Coming from above me, actually. My eyes scoured the branches to the left and to the right, some hanging over the road, others daring not reach too far. When I found myself staring into two congruent stars in the cloudy night sky, I knew that I was not alone. Those weren't stars, they were eyes. Sitting upon a short, thick branch of an ancient oak tree was a figure which itself reminded me of trees and branches, sharp, angular bits protruding from it. It was nothing more than a silhouette and eyes from my perspective, though, but I could hear the rumbling coming from it, and I could see the twinkle of its eyes fade in and out as it blinked. It was something alive, something large, something bizarrely shaped. I backed away, carefully guiding myself back to the driveway without looking away from the entity. But halfway back, the rumbling stopped and the starlight eyes looked away at last. Had I intruded on its space? I'd walked this road 100 times before, but had never witnessed such a thing. This was my space, my territory. Yet there I stood, trembling and still walking backward in my own driveway, terrified and baffled. Back inside, I peeled the sweaty shirt from myself and quickly shared the experience with my wife. "How big was it?" was her first question. "Well, I didn't have the greatest view of the thing," I admitted. "But it reminded me of a crouched man, if they were wearing a ghillie suit." She thought for a moment. "Probably a possum. Maybe it looked weird because its silhouette overlapped some branches and foliage. Made it look bigger." She'd always been a voice of reason, and though I didn't like the idea of her just disbelieving me before anything else, I did find comfort in the idea that what I saw was completely natural, explainable, or benign. The following morning, as I had the day off, I went for a morning jog. I would be running up that meandering road thanks to the bravery afforded me by daylight. But before I took off, I wanted to investigate the spot where I'd seen that supposed possum. It wasn't hard to find, though. There was, under the branch I'd seen it, a great red splatter and tufts of matted gray-brown fur. Judging from the remains I'd found in the leaves nearby, it appeared to be someone's dog, perhaps a German or Dutch shepherd. I ran back inside the house. My wife was at work at the time, but she had a DSLR camera with a lens that had some amazing optical zoom. After finding it, I ran back outside, careful not to step in that mess. I peered through the camera up at the branch where that thing had been sitting. I swallowed hard. There were red stains on the bark, as well as deep holes gouged into the branch. Even if a possum could devour a German shepherd, I was sure that they didn't have talons so big, and they could stab deep eyeball-sized holes into wood. After taking some pictures to show my wife, I placed the camera back inside and went the opposite direction for my morning run. I didn't like jogging where my neighbors were, but at least it felt safer. When I had told my wife and showed her the pictures, she then believed it was some kind of mountain lion, which I was then convinced of too. A couple of nights later, I felt courageous enough for another just after sundown jog. Back and forth I went again, getting my heart rate up in a jiffy as I felt in a good mood to run. My earbuds were in, the air was almost warm, and the ground was dry. It was nearly a perfect night for it. As I was listening to a new podcast I'd discovered, an episodic serial killer series of all things, I suddenly felt my chest vibrating. The tickling sensation immediately sent me into a panic. I only realized then that my pass-through was turned off. I then remembered that I reset the earbud application recently, causing my settings to reset as well. I stopped in my tracks and yanked out the earbuds. I looked instinctively to that branch. But I did not see eyes or a silhouette this time, nothing out of place over there. When my chest vibrated again, I now heard the sound that caused it. Instead of a rumbling, it sounded like a low growl, a dog's growl. Searching the forest floor around the road, I soon saw eyeshine. It was in fact a dog, a German shepherd, and immediately I wanted to vomit. It was peering from around a nearby tree. Its eyes were completely motionless, lifeless, never blinking. and worst of all, its jaw seemed far too slack and open, sickeningly loose as if it was broken or lodged out of place. Even still, it seemed to shift or pulsate as it growled intermittently. I didn't want to believe what I was looking at. It looked exactly like some sick freak was using a dog's head to taunt me from behind that tree. But the sound that was coming from there, it wasn't human, not even close, and I could vaguely make out sharp claws holding on to the bottom of the poor dog's skull. It wasn't human, and it wasn't taunting me either. It was luring me. It wanted me in those woods, and all I wanted was to stay inside for the rest of my life. I didn't hesitate. I took off back to my house in a full sprint. The moment I looked back during my run, that one moment when I couldn't help but want to know if I was being chased then, a blunt pain shot over my face as a sickening wet slap reverberated around me. I wiped the fluid from my watering eyes and held my nose as it felt broken. Then I nearly tripped. The dog's head was below me. That creature had thrown a dog's severed head at me. As I stood there, stunned and injured, I nearly didn't hear the rapid quadrupedal footsteps racing towards me from behind, as well as deep, raspy panting that caused my ribs to vibrate. I tried to scream as I carried myself up the slight hill to my front door, and the moment I shut that door, a violent clawing could be heard from just outside. The rumbling erupted again, too, causing my chest to vibrate more violently than ever. It no longer tickled or felt strange. It hurt, causing me to scream. My wife watched in shock, too scared to ask any questions. After the sounds died down, I sat on the couch for the remainder of the night, holding my wife close after she helped me with my broken nose. After this incident, my wife and I are looking into moving, quite seriously. This was our first home purchase, a place I thought we'd grow old in. I can't tell you how awful this feeling is, being driven from your home by something you can't explain, being so horrified and dominated by something outside of your control and understanding, something no one else believes. I don't know if there's more than one of them, but if you see the signs, stay indoors at night. When dogs go missing or are killed in your neighborhood, when you see the starry eyes in the trees, when there are deep gouges in the tree branches, move.